pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. My first introduction to cystic fibrosis came before I became an MP. I did some writing of newsletters and some PR for something called the Cystic Fibrosis Holiday Fund. The fund's main objective was to provide holidays and ancillary facilities to those under the age of 18 who are suffering from cystic fibrosis. Of course, on the basis of medical advice that was given in 2000, we cannot take those children away together to be able to do that. And it now spends most of its time generating grants, a respite break grant and a family revitalised programme. And all of those are very important. But none of them compare with making available Orkambi or any of the other drugs that we talked about. There are two families in my constituency with children with cystic fibrosis. And I have spent time with both of them and have seen that the children are largely happy, normal children who enjoy all the things that other children enjoy. But they have hanging over them the threat of a double lung transplant in order to stay alive. Now, Orkambi does change lives, and we need to look at ways in which we can make this available. And during the conversations that I had on this, there were a number of structural difficulties that we identified. The first amongst those was one of commercial incentive and risk. And compounding that point, and I know the subject of diabetes has already been mentioned, but if you look at the relative strengths in terms of the number of people who suffer from those illnesses, diabetes accounts for 4 million people, and cystic fibrosis for 70,000. So there is already built in a major hurdle that those with cystic fibrosis have to overcome, and I don't think that we should forget that. I think the issue that has already been raised in relation to the time it takes goes back to criticisms that I would certainly make of the NICE process, and the criticisms that I would make fall into three types. Firstly, NICE adopts the same evaluation process for a drug which might treat tens of millions of people as it does for a drug that treats a few hundred thousand or indeed a few thousand. And I think we need to bring home to them that this is not a right way of proceeding. The same evaluation process is used whether the drug is taken for a brief period or whether it's taken for a long period. In other words, whether it is a short cancer-related drug, or whether, as in the case of Orkambi, you have to keep taking it over many, many long periods. And I think that needs to be built in as well to being able to evaluate the drug. And the other criticism that I would make of the NICE process is that it is too focused on short-term benefits and not on the long-term benefits. And we know that Orkambi can produce long-term benefits. Indeed, as I think has already been mentioned, the data released by Vertex itself showed that after 96 weeks of treatment, the rate of lung function declined by 42%. So that is a major long-term thing to hang on to. And the net value of Orkambi is hard to calculate and therefore accurately to capture. And there are a number of direct costs that need to be taken into account with this. For example, the costs of hospitalization. And there is no evidence that Orkambi starts to reduce the number of medicines. There is evidence that Orkambi also starts to reduce the number of other medicines that needs to be taken. Now, we've heard that Orkambi is available in many other countries in Europe, although I hear that the Spanish government is having difficulty with Vertex in the same way as we are over making available the drug. And the agreement that was reached with Vertex to make Orkambi available has been a very disappointing affair, and we need to put pressure to make sure that that happens and that other generic drugs are brought forward and can be used in their place. The example that has been used quite often is Ireland. And both families in my constituency mentioned the situation in Ireland. And it is very interesting to note that the situation in Ireland is a success story for the use of Orkambi. It has been very, very successful there, and it is one that we should all take to account and take to heart in taking this forward in order to make sure that the young people that are suffering from cystic fibrosis have access to this drug.